Good morning everybody, welcome to day one of my 90-day vlog challenge. My name's Tess Crawley. If you haven't met me before, I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist based in Hobart, and we've got locations in Hobart, Launceston and rural outreach along the east coast of Tasmania, as well as Scottsdale and Georgetown. You might be able to hear a bit of music. I'm actually in not Hobart today, I'm in the Brisbane Mall in Queen Street, Brisbane. My camera, you can see a little bit around me. I'm in probably the least pretty bit of the mall, but when we look down this way you can see there's a very stereotypical Brisbane view just there for you to look at. So why am I in Brisbane? Well, I'm here for some training, and it got me thinking this morning that you might actually be interested to know what psychologists do as far as their training obligations. How does someone become a psychologist? There are a number of ways of becoming a psychologist, but the stereotypical way is for postgraduate studies. So to become registered as a psychologist, you need as a very minimum 4 years of university training plus 2 years of supervised practice, and that is called the 4+2 method of becoming a registered psychologist. In Tasmania, that's not the most common method. In Tasmania, most psychologists have certainly the newer graduate psychologists have a minimum of 6 years university training. So they do a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science or something like that with a double major in psychology, and then they will go on and do an honours year if they're successful in getting into the honours program, which is very competitive. To give you an idea, when I went to university, there were I think 400 students in my first year psychology program. And good morning, Angela. Welcome to you. Thank you for joining me. When I was in my first year of psychology training, first year of my Bachelor of Arts, there were 400 students in my psychology year, in my psychology class, and that over the course of the next few years boiled down to 24 places available in the honours program. So to get from 400 down to only 24 spots available, and of course they're competed for from students all over the country, not just students at the University of Tasmania where I went. And then beyond that, I think there were only 12 places in the Masters program. So it is quite a competitive process to become fully trained as a psychologist. And those students that enter the Masters program then do 2 years of additional specifically focused psychology training plus a number of placements in psychology, in the psychology profession. So they will go and do 6 months at the hospital or 6 months at the university psychology clinic. A number of them will come and do 6 months with me in my practice. So we always have postgraduate psychology students in our practice. And then after they've completed all those obligations plus written a master's thesis, so that's quite a large document, and if anyone's written a thesis you'll know what a nightmare that can be. Or they might do the pathway that I did, which was to do a clinical PhD. So I did all the coursework and all the placements of a master's student, but a PhD-sized thesis, and that required conducting psychological experiments and analysing the results of that, and then writing that up as a thesis that remains in the university library if you're ever curious to have a look at it. So then beyond the master's program, then what happens is to become a clinical psychologist, the graduates are then required to undergo 2 years of additional supervised practice in what's called the clinical registrar program. So that's on top of their 6 years of university training. They then do another 2 years of practice full-time equivalent, so they can do it part-time, but it's obviously most efficient to do it full-time. 2 years of supervised practice. So I have a number of clinical registrars in my practice, both in Launceston and in Hobart, who are undergoing their supervision. They're working away, doing a great job. They're highly skilled, but that supervised practice. Hello, Anita's walking past. Can we say hello, Anita? She's gone to get some hairspray, just as I just went to get a toothbrush, because guess what I left at home. So where were we? Supervised practice. So they do all the same role as a clinical psychologist, which they've had lots of practice doing during their placement, their master's program and their placement program. But that additional supervised practice is quite intensive, and it just stretches them clinically and helps them also focus on what area of practice they really want to build their career in, if you like. So once they've got their clinical endorsement, then they're allowed to use the title of clinical psychologist. They're not actually allowed to use that title until they've completed that endorsement program. So that's 8 years of training. So for me, it was 10 years because I did the PhD. So 10 years of training for me at university, some of that part-time, but mostly full-time, plus the 2 years supervised practice. So I guess that makes it 12 years for me. The title psychologist is a protected title. It's protected by legislation. I'm just trying to get the sun out of my eyes. Oh, your eyes, really. There you go. You can be in my eyes instead. So the title psychologist is protected. There's legislation protecting that title. And what that means is you actually have to be registered with AHPRA. So that's the Australian Health Professionals Registration Authority. It used to just be called the Psychologist Registration Board. And you have to be registered with them before you can use that title of psychologist. So psychology is one of the professions, there are a few, but one of the professions that has a specifically protected title. So as you heard me say, it's quite a process to become registered. So the master's students can't be fully registered until they've completed their 6 years training, and it's a great training program. It doesn't end there though. So I'm here in Brisbane to do some training today. So one of our obligations to maintain our registration is that we must participate in ongoing professional development each year. And we have to submit, every time we renew our registration documents each year, we have to actually tick a box and state clearly that we have met our obligations for our registration, for our ongoing professional development. So because I am a glutton for punishment, I'm a member of 2 of the colleges of the Australian Psychological Society. So I'm a member of the Clinical Psychology College, but I'm also a forensic psychologist, which also required some additional obligations on me when I was completing my training. So being a member of those 2 colleges means I've actually got more professional development obligations than most psychologists who have just one endorsement have. So off the top of my head, I think it's roughly, someone correct me in the comments because I'm bound to get this wrong, but it's roughly around 15 hours per endorsement. So I've got about 30 hours of professional development that I need to do each year. Some of that needs to be what they call active professional development. Oh, hi Kim, well, thanks for joining. Some of that needs to be what they call active professional development, so attending workshops where you're actually being taught something by somebody else and you take away some new knowledge. And then there are other things that we can do, such as ongoing peer-to-peer supervision or peer support, attending meetings where you're discussing elements of your practice, reading journal articles about developments within the psychology profession and new treatment modalities and things like that. So a bit like you might know that GPs continue their learning throughout the year, psychologists are also required to do the same. And if we don't, there are actually quite significant consequences. You can actually be penalised by the registration board. So long story short, I'm in Brisbane to do some training. Now the training I'm doing now, because I'm a practice owner and my role is increasingly around managing my practice and mentoring my team. I still do see clients, of course, but a smaller number than I used to. My professional development this year in particular has been all around psychology, the business of running a psychology practice and how best to support my team and how best to support our clients and how best to assist our referrers, such as GPs, to make everybody's life run a bit more smoothly. So for me, the training I'm doing today is very exciting because I have Anita here with me, as you saw before. Anita's our practice manager. And Anita is joining me in this training because this particular workshop is actually for 2 full days. I'm told they're going to be packed full of knowledge. It's much more about the practicalities of the administration side of our psychology practice, which might sound a bit dull, but I'm actually really excited about it because we've got a number of exciting changes that we're making within the practice to help the way we market the practice and the way that we make things easier for clients. So for example, these videos that I'm doing, this is all about adding some resources to our Facebook page, to our website, to the YouTube channel that I'm a bit behind with updating with these videos. But all of those are free resources. So think about the anxiety vlogs that I've been doing. They are available, and I often have been saying to my clients, have a look at those videos if you need an update on what to do to manage your breathing when you're anxious and things like that. So it's all about providing an extra value for our clients that is meaningful to them and helpful to us, and also helpful to other psychologists. Part of my one of my core business values is about mentoring other psychologists. So I've got some ideas about how better to do that as well, and some of that will be helped by the learning I'll receive while I'm here in Brisbane. Anyway, the time is 8:26. I now have the toothbrush that I left in home. Well, I have a replacement toothbrush, so best go clean my tats. And that's slang for teeth, in case you think I have tattoos, because of course I do not. And I will come back to you later. But thank you for joining me, Kim and Ange, for the first day of my 90-day vlog challenge. You're all going to be, I hope, not sick to death of me by the end of that, but I'm excited about all the things, all the ideas that have been popping in my mind overnight, about some of the ideas I can share with you, some of the information I can share with you, some of the strategies and techniques and tips that I can share with you on a range of topics. So if you're watching this video, if you're watching it later, because I can see that Kim and Ange are the only two people I have with me live today, but if you're watching the recording later, come and leave some comments asking for me to cover some topics that really interest you. Don't feel afraid that everyone's going to think that that it's going to be an embarrassment for you. I want you to all feel free to join me in this stigma reducing program that I'm embarking on too. So a big part of why I do all of this is to help make psychology seem more approachable, more friendly, easy to talk about, mental health issues easy to talk about, and reducing the stigma around mental health. So join me in that stigma rebellion, and leave some comments and share some posts, and ask me some questions, and don't be afraid of that. Have a fantastic Saturday wherever you are. The sun is really coming out in Brisbane. It's a beautiful, beautiful day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.